Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today we are continuing on with our rewind reviews of the L Word Generation Q Season 1, and I'm sure most people who come to the channel know that when I started my channel it was with episode 6, so I only did episodes 6, 7 and 8 on my channel when the L Word Season 1 was on the air. And then I also did go back a year later and do 6 and 7. So at the moment, we're reviewing episodes 1 through 5 and 8 of season 1 of Generation Q. So that, there's a whole season worth of reviews. And I do want to redo 8 because I didn't redo that when I did 6 and 7. And it was obviously the very beginning of my channel. I like to think things have improved, if not anything. I have better lighting, I have better sound, and I think my confidence has improved a little bit, so take that with a grain of salt as you will. So let's get straight on to our review today. Kick back, relax, hit subscribe, and let's dive into the L Word Generation Q, Episode 2, Less is More. This song is copyrighted. This song is copyrighted. You won't hear it because it's copyrighted. So now that we've got the first episode out of the way, and I did that more as like a scene by scene thing, I'm going to do what I was doing with the OG reviews and break it up by character, as you guys don't need me to sit here and tell you what happens in the episode. I'm sure anybody watching this has seen the episode, and I think it's easier than, because there is a lot of like quick scenes and then a lot of crossover, so it gets a little bit messy trying to just like jump through the scenes, and some of those scenes also don't need to be talked about. So I'm going to start out with the newbies and then move into the OGs, and I will also put Nat and Gigi with Alice because that just makes sense. I mean, all their scenes are only with Alice. So starting out with Danny and Sophie, kind of, because they're obviously the new main couple, and Danny is going through this, leaving not only her company but her family company, that she's basically been groomed for this job like her entire life, and her dad does not take it very well, and she also kind of throws in that she's got engaged to Sophie and he can't even deal with that. So she is very quickly, the dad's like, you're done here, like go out, I'll get someone to escort you out, pretty much, which he did not take it well. So Danny starts working for Bette in this episode, and she definitely has a different idea, maybe because she's worked for her dad her whole life, and I think that this is just kind of the expectation that a lot of younger people, and this is just younger people in general, always have this vision of, oh, when I start work and I'll be in my office and be making my 6-figure salary and all this straight out of school, and I'll have this really fancy job title, and it's very, very rarely a reality, and you really have to climb that ladder yourself. So Danny has, I'm sure she never has really worked anywhere else but for her dad. That's, she says, her adult life, but I mean, maybe she had a summer job somewhere when she was a teenager, but she's always had this fancy job title. She's, there's no way you can work for your dad and it's not nepotism. Like, there will be nepotism going on, and she's in a big office. I'm sure she was on like a big salary, and she has never had to deal with Pierce is like, just grab a desk. Like, that's the way it is for most people. And although, obviously I'm being a bit harsh here and saying the nepotism and Danny and her family's job, I mean, she has a great education too. I think I remember she went to USC and then Stanford. I mean, hello. And she also obviously is very good at her job. Like, she's proving that straight away with the whole, people in this sort of PR, marketing, social media field. Like one of my companies is a bit more in line with what Danny does. And it's very much, you know, you can sit and do the checkbox things like buy Facebook ads and all this stuff, but the really great people at this sort of job are what Danny's doing, in the sense that they're doing it in a very organic way, with she's making other people do the work for her in a way too, and then that makes it, as she says, more authentic. So I did really like that Danny was super good at her job, and you can see that straight away. Like, this is obviously what Bette's seen in her, and it felt really organic, and as she said, completely authentic in what they're displaying about Danny and her sort of career and ability within her job, which, as we know, like, Danny's kind of Bette protege. That's one thing about Bette, like, she is amazing at her job, she's very intelligent, she has a great education as well, great work ethic. So I think that it really matches up with Bette as a character, that, you know, we're being shown Danny as like a mini-me protege type of thing. So Danny and Sophie do have, you know, issues starting off the episode, because Danny obviously did not discuss the whole change of job thing with Sophie, and Sophie doesn't take this very well. And we also get their engagement party at the very end of the episode, which is really nice. And the one thing I kept thinking though was, like, when Sophie's family shows up, which, like, it's cool that this early on we're getting to meet family members and learning more about the character, like where they come from, what type of person they are, because that is a huge critique of the original L Word, that, you know, a lot of the characters we really got no sort of background development that way, and the ones that we did, it was, you know, we met Bette's dad and stuff, but we got nothing else pretty much about her mom or about just her life before. Like, we don't even know how she met most of the group. And, you know, we got these tiny little details, like we saw a very quick scene of how she met Tina, we saw a very quick scene of when she and Alice were together, and it's just nice to see from the beginning they're starting this kind of, you will know these characters a lot better. And that is also shown with Finley, which I'll talk about in a minute. But when Sophie's family show up at the engagement party, it's, you know, her mom, her sister, like, it's most of her family. And then Danny is saying, my family's not here. And I'm like, who are all these people? Because it seems like there's a lot of not their age group, like a lot of older people with kids that are like running around age. So are these all like cousins, or like, because then it would be like, you'd think they would pressure her dad to come. So that was just, yeah, I was just wondering who, and it was a lot of people, like a lot, and they're all, you know, that's a big apartment complex they live in, and they're taking up, like, I'm sure you could book it or something like that, but yeah, there was a lot of people, and I was just wondering who all these people were. We do get to see Sophie at work, and I did really enjoy those scenes with Alice and Sophie and, like, you know, the douchebag writers and things, because I think it really emulated a lot of stuff that, I mean, anybody who has any sort of LGBTQ platform talks about on the side that, like, I'm on, where you don't just want to be the fun gay or the fun gay friend, like, and I think that is a lot of the LGBTQ's critique of Ellen, that it's like, we don't want you to talk about, you know, anything about what's going on wrong in the LGBTQ community, like, in the sense that, you know, people are being mistreated and trans rights and things like that, but we want you to come out and play a fun game or dance, or, you know, they just want, like, I don't even want to say tokenism, but it's just someone to point to and say, look, that's our lesbian representation, and aren't they so fun? And everybody just wants to come out and smile and wave rainbow flags. It's like, no, we actually have work to do. There's so many people around the world that still are living in fear or living in the closet and have absolutely no right. There's still horrible things happening to people in America, in the UK, in countries where gay marriage is legal, and there's still work to be done. We still need representation in the media, and a lot more representation apart from the one, fun gay. So I did really like that conversation, and I think it is extremely accurate. And it also made me think about how different it is now. If you look at the original L Word, when Showtime commissioned the show, the show was commissioned in 2002, and then obviously it took 2 years to get it started and going and shooting, and then by the time it got on the screens it was 2004. So when they were developing the show, Showtime forced them to have straight male writers in the room in season 1, and it's so different now that they didn't do that, and they had not just a few people. There's like people from all backgrounds and lots of representation, not only in front of the camera but behind it. So I think that's a key difference in how far we've come in the past almost 20 years, which is crazy to think about. But there's still a lot of work to be done, and it's starting right here with Generation Q, so it's great to see. So Finley, we do get a little bit more information about her, and some little, nuggets being dropped when Sophie and Finley are at work, and Finley saying, oh, are you both going to wear dresses? And you see her kind of make like a face and say, oh, it's just like making me uncomfortable. And it makes sense then when Finley says, a few minutes later, oh, my parents kicked me out of the house and like sleep in separate beds. And Finley clearly, I mean, anybody can obviously see this, that she has serious internalized homophobia, and that is something that I know a lot of LGBTQ people have dealt with. And it's why, again, representation is so important, because people say like, oh, seeing two women in a dress, like, oh, that's funny and stuff. And it's like, it's not. It's just because you're brainwashed by society to think that it should be, a man in a suit and a woman in a dress, and that is the only, couple that is valid or whatever. So it is, again, so important that we are seeing these things on screen and being able to turn on Grey's Anatomy, and there's a wedding with a man and a woman, and a wedding with two women in wedding dresses. So just that being around and visible, it's even changing things now in the sense that, my nephews who are like 6, 3, and 1, if a kid in their school has like two moms or two dads, like, it's just like, okay, like, oh, his parents have blonde hair and her parents have brown hair, and like, it just is not a big deal to them, because they're growing up in a society where it is a lot more visible than, when people my age were growing up, and that I never even saw a gay person on television until Buffy, that was like 2001, and I was already like 14, 15 when that happened. So, and that was like one example, and then again, not until the L Word was there any sort of proper representation outside of that one token couple. I do really actually like Finley a lot. I mean, obviously she is someone who really needs some help and is clearly dealing with a really traumatic past. But I do like the kind of, her and Shane, and like Shane's like taking her in a little bit, even though it has obviously been a bit of a miscommunication. And she's such like a happy, like go lucky, like little puppy that is just happy all the time. And obviously, a lot of the time, the people that outwardly are like that sometimes are the people inside that, are hurt the most. So I just like her character. I like how positive she is. And even though like it was a bit silly, like when she's going around like hitting on all the women and stuff, it just was really funny. And Shane sitting at the bar just like, oh god, it was great. So with that, moving into Shane, obviously the big thing for Shane in this episode is that she gets her divorce papers. And obviously when we were watching this we didn't know, anything really about Shane's wife. And that was kind of a really interesting thing to do, to kind of drop it in like Shane's getting divorced and then working it through, and slowly we were learning more and more about Shane's marriage, and then we finally meet Shane's wife Kiara. And I also really liked in this episode how we had the little seeds being planted for Dana's, and we met Tess and we met Lena, so those were also some really interesting things to get started and get going. And Shane's house too, I'm just like, Shane's like, oh, there's some extra bedrooms like in the back, like as if she hasn't even like looked around the house, and she's just been like, I'll take it. But that every time that they're in that house, I'm like, oh my god, this is just so amazing. So Shane is a really, obviously if she can just buy a bar like that, like she is doing really well for herself. So Alice, I think this is kind of Alice's episode. She definitely has the most going on. And then we also do get like a flashback, which again, I'm loving the character development. I'm loving that we're like laying the foundations, getting to know more about what's going on. And I love it. And we start the episode with Nat and Alice's first date, and Gigi coming and hammering her wedding ring onto the door. And this is the moment that I fell in love with Gigi, because as I've made abundantly clear, I love a crazy brunette. So this is when she was the one for me. But Alice and Nat go through this kind of parenting thing in the episode, and Alice is working through that awkwardness basically of being the step parent, and then she's put in this position where one of the kids is sick, and Nat, who's a therapist, is like in session, and then Gigi's in real estate, so she was like away, and Alice picks up the kid. The critique I have about that scene where they pick up the kid, and it is the only scene in the episode with OGs together, that is, if I have to critique, because, I get told all the time that I'm not critical enough, that there was no real OG interaction in this episode. I mean, we had Bette on the phone to Alice, and we did have that scene with Shane helping Alice with the kid, but outside of that, they didn't really have any interaction. And the kid's standing there about to be sick, and Alice is like running around the kitchen to get a crock pot. Just pick the kid up and put it in the bathroom and let it be sick in the bathroom. I'm sure Bette, when she was on the phone, was fighting the feeling to tell Alice she should have put the kid in the bathroom. Another little bit of framework we were getting laid down there was when Alice is at the meeting, because she's only really briefly at the office, that they are talking about like this, I guess he's like a network guy, and then the writer Drew are saying to Alice like, oh, when we bought your podcast, and this is just random throwing it in here, but season 2 filming, they did have a picture, I'll put it on the screen, that everybody was talking about, oh, maybe this is like a new thing that's going to happen in season 2. But I've always been of the belief that this is just in the same sense that I'll put another picture on the screen to explain. In production offices, like they will have all, if it's a movie studio, they'll have all like the films that have been done. And if, say it was the L Word production office and they're filming season 6, they would have like posters for all the seasons. And in the production office for Generation Q, they have the season 1, like the really big cast picture that was shared for everything, where they've all got like their arms around each other and it's like the Sunset Boulevard sign in the background. So that's just like a common thing to have those posters and things on the wall. So I'm sure there's some other, when Alice did the look, I'm sure there's a look poster somewhere in Alice's production offices. And the way they have the chart stenciled on the wall, one of the crew took a picture recently, and you can see that the chart where it's stenciled on the wall, there's a connection to Samira Wiley. And I was like, oh, maybe they're like, because they've been putting the guests on the chart that's stenciled on the wall. It's not hookups like the original. So maybe, there's a tiny chance that we could get Samira Wiley as a guest on Alice next season. So fingers crossed. But as I was saying, that the chart thing that they shared the picture of, I think it was Leo Sheng that shared the picture originally. So this is obviously the podcast that they've bought and then turned into the Alice show. I think one of the best scenes of the episode, in my opinion, was the scene with Alice and Gigi, and they kind of like talk through things a bit. And you can see, like, especially for Gigi, it's obviously like a really difficult conversation. And I just thought both Leisha Haley and Sefida Mwafi were brilliant in that scene. They were really, really authentic and real, and it was just so natural, which I always say, like, Leisha Haley is such a great actress because you just believe it's her. Like, I feel like she improvises a lot, but maybe she doesn't, but it's just the way she's so good and so realistic that I thought as well when like they were doing that back and forth, it was just a really, really flawlessly executed, and I really enjoyed that scene. And of course, last but not least, my favorite, Bette Porter, who, this is kind of Alice's episode, but of course Bette, is always front and center. So we have a lot going on in this episode for Bette, and again, what I will keep saying, they are doing such a great job of making this a new show that you do not necessarily have to watch the original L Word, but there are a lot of L Word Easter eggs for the OG fans like all of us. So I loved the Bette bringing Angie to work, and even though by the end of the episode Angie's obviously like, she's not so bad, but I think that this is kind of unanimous that kids, no matter who their parents are, even if they're Bette fucking Porter, kids don't care and think their parents are annoying. Because I heard this story the other day that kind of encompassed this, that there's a really great podcast in the UK by two comedians called Rob Beckett and Josh Widdicombe, and I think that they're both great. And they told this story about, they were doing an interview with Sheryl Crow, and they were backstage and her son was there, who's like 18 or something, and they were basically, the son was saying, oh, I really want to go to LA and like get into the music industry there. And Sheryl Crow was saying, no, you need to go to like Austin or somewhere like that and, go to school, or get into the industry in a different town and learn things and like build up, your songs and things like that, and then go to LA. And the guy said the kid just turned around and goes, "Oh, shut up, Mum. What do you know about the music industry?" It's like, it's Sheryl Crow, and you're saying this to her. So I guess that just goes along the whole thing that, even if your mum's Bette Porter, you're not going to be that impressed. So another one of my favorite scenes was when Bette and Danny are having the conversation that all of us have been waiting 12 goddamn years for. That we finally close the book, find out what happened to Jennifer Schechter. And I loved what they did here with, we got not only the Jenny thing resolved, but we got callbacks to the original in that all the way back to season 1 when Bette tells Danny about spending the night in jail and about cheating on Tina. But I would have loved, it was great. It was really good that we got, those 3 things and the Jenny thing resolved, because seriously, 12 years. And I would have loved if they would have put something totally random and out there, like, I don't know, oh yeah, I graffitied the Hollywood sign or something like that. Something that we never saw in the original L Word that was outlandish and has obviously happened in the 10 intervening years. And then somehow over the next however many seasons, like, we would finally get a flashback or find out what happened there. So I think that was the only thing that I think could have improved it, because we would have always been like, what the hell happened there? Of course, I did really enjoy the Alice and Gigi scene. I did really enjoy the Bette and Danny scene. But the Best Acting Award, of course, has to go to Bette at the LGBTQ homeless center. That scene, Jennifer Beals, was just amazing. She was so good in that scene. And I mean, as I've been saying throughout this episode, throughout my entire channel, basically, is representation. And Bette really, she just honestly is so great in this scene and talking to the LGBTQ youth. And we also get some more nuggets, and I actually, when she's talking about Tina in this episode, and she's saying about her dad and how he never accepted Tina and called Tina Bette's friend, and when Bette says, the woman I love beyond measure, I always have the subtitles on, but I went back and like freeze frame so I could see the absolute correct subtitle, because I was like, is it love or loved? And I was watching it on Apple TV, so it doesn't let you take screenshots, but it screenshots black and then the subtitle, so you can see that she did say love. So we know that Bette is still carrying her torch for Tina, and that will basically never end. And again, you could see her chain that we know has her wedding ring on it, but you can't actually see the ring. She had like the chain like that, so we know that when Tina comes, we do find out that she has her wedding ring on that chain. And then at the very end, we also see Bette and Felicity meet up, and they don't say anything, but they have like a little bit of a eye contact handhold moment. So that is where we leave the episode. Overall, another episode that I just found myself like smiling through, especially a lot of the mentions, like calling back to the original show. I just really get a kick out of those. I thought this episode was really great. I mean, out of the newbies, I really do like Danny and Finley. Gigi, of course, is my favorite newbie. And Bette, Alice, Shane, they're just themselves, killing it as always. So let me know what you guys think of this episode down in the comment section below. Make sure if you enjoyed the video to give it a like, as it really helps me out and the channel out as well. If you want to keep up to date with all of the L Word season 2 filming news, updates on when the show's coming out, when the trailer's going to drop. Make sure to follow me on social media and make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you get notifications when I drop really big news, like when we are getting a trailer, which I hope is really, really soon, because they are filming the season 2 finale right now. They did the table read on the 30th of April last week, so it's really the end. They're wrapping up in May, so fingers crossed that we are getting the show sometime in the not too distant future. Just to let you guys know also, I have put some really awesome pieces in my merch store. I had a really awesome lady that she did some great designs for me. She's really, really talented. So there's basically 3 new like Bette and Tina shirts. I really love the one of them on the porch because she made the newspaper. It has like me on it and like my name. So I really love that. And they're all in the store. You can get shirts, hoodies, water bottles, accessory pouches, phone cases, everything. So that is a really great way to support the channel as well. And also don't forget to come to my lives on Fridays. They're usually at 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 a.m. Pacific, and we talk about everything that's happened that week on the set of the L Word Generation Q and look at all the new pictures and talk about guest stars and theories and what's going on. So make sure that you guys stop by there as well. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to stay safe, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.